The story begins with us seeing several microscopic marine life forms. Zooming out from a researcher's eye, we see her looking through a microscope. She is Priya, who tells her coworker that this research is giving her a hard time. But her coworker thinks Priya loves it. Priya replies her dad wanted her to get a good job, while her mom wanted her to get married. Science was a great way to disappoint them both. At that moment, a coworker named Ben enters the room. He mentions some sampling taking place at the Marshes. Ben knows it's a last-minute request, yet he wants to join Priya in her research out there, so she allows it. After Ben leaves, another person enters, introducing himself as Will. He is new, taking certain materials away. The next scene has Priya, Ben, and Will driving together to the Marshes. Will seems to break the silence by asking if there is a chance of them getting malaria out there. The other two find this question funny. Due to the mosquitoes, Ben says it's possible but highly improbable. Priya adds that it's no more likely than in the city. Soon Ben turns on an educational game that presents the sounds of certain animals and allows its listeners to guess what animal makes them. The two experts perform well by guessing correctly upon hearing the sound. When Will tries to chime in, his ignorance instantly shows. The other two laugh again. Arriving at a gas station, the trio parks near a man with his truck. He yells at his dog, whose name is Cerberus. As Priya is pumping gas, the man starts talking to her. She tells him she's going to the Marshes because he asked. She also informs him she works with aquatic ecosystems. He's heard about how they take water away from farmers to give to their frogs. Priya corrects him by saying they don't take water from anyone. This conversation quickly turns into a disagreement. Then the man says when someone restricts flow, pressure can build up. He demonstrates this by folding the hose, releasing it. Gas surges out on the ground and on Priya. If that wasn't enough, he tosses his lit cigarette on the fluid to scare Priya. Thankfully, a fire does not ignite due to the gas being inert. But the vile man still manages to scare her and walks away laughing with his victory. As she tries to enter the store, he keeps bothering Priya by holding the door to prevent her entrance. This ongoing bad behavior of his prompts her to throw a mean insult at him. Afterward, the trio continues their drive. Ben asks if Priya is sure she is okay, so she tells him the man at the gas station was being rude. This causes Ben to start talking about how their species is the most intelligent, yet has the highest propensity for stupidity. He goes on about the subject to the point of distancing himself from the other two. Ben concludes by saying they are out of luck. Come dusk, the group seems to have arrived at the marsh. The next day, we see they have settled there with tents and all of their research equipment. Priya gives Will special clothes to wear, but he doesn't know how to wear them. Thus, she shows the rookie how to do it, but he still falls. Doing her research, Priya pours ethanol into a tube to observe the tiny creature swimming inside of it. Then she pours ethanol into 3 tubes for the trio to drink. Ben makes a toast to Will's first day of fieldwork. Since drinking the crude alcohol was too much, the gang each drinks a beer. Later, they sit by the fire and Ben tells a story about a swagman whose ghost roams in the marshes. Ben tries to scare his partners by claiming that the swagman takes anyone unlucky enough to stumble into his watery domain. The following day, Will tells Priya she cares too much about this place. She expresses it's impossible not to. As the duo is walking together, they come across the man from the gas station. His dog is there barking while he's busy gutting a pig he caught. Priya tells him he's in a reserve, meaning he's not allowed to be there without a research permit. She wants him to know that hunting and dogs are strictly prohibited in this area. There is a woman with him who says they have a permit, but Priya is too smart to believe that. Taking offense to it, the woman asks Priya if she's calling her a liar. Priya does not even hesitate to confirm that she is. This makes the foul man laugh. He looks at her to say she's not from there, and she takes a photo of him. Trouble is about to stir among them, so Priya leaves with Will. At night, the trio is sitting by the fire. As Ben heads off to bed, Priya hears an unusual sound. It prompts her to use a flashlight to see what it could have been. She thinks someone is there. In the morning, Ben and Will stand together to look at a peculiarity. When Priya joins them, we see they are looking at a severed pig's head. Will asks if they should call someone. Priya says she has her camera, but notices it was stolen. Ben agrees with Will. He thinks they should contact the university. The lady is the least scared one, saying they are not in any danger. She also says that by the time the police arrive, the people who committed this theft will be long gone. The culprits went out of their way to create trouble by getting the trio's fishing net stuck in a tree, which Priya struggles to remove. At night, Will tells Priya he wishes he had done this 50 years ago, before things were mixed up like they are now. This leads to the two sharing an intimate moment. When Ben interrupts them by leaving his tent to relieve himself, They are forced to engage in the act elsewhere. As they do, Priya oddly starts getting choked. Fortunately, she awakens from this nightmare in her tent. She goes outside to sit, and a figure suddenly grabs her. This incident is immediately followed by an abrupt display of several different microbes. The morning greets us by showing two people hanging somewhere. Supposedly, the group does not see this. Priya exits her tent to find Ben making food by the fire. She sits near him, and he asks her how she feels. Not getting an answer, Ben asks if they should head back, but Priya does not want to. She wonders if there are any more pig heads to startle them today. After Ben says there aren't, he tells her he doesn't think it's a good idea for her to get involved with a student. Priya acts confused about what he says. He firmly tells her the university has rules, and she should be careful. His concern prompts Priya to ask when exactly did he become this bitter. Correcting her, he says he's cynical. Soon Will joins them, quelling the argument between the two. Priya tells Will she won't need him today, so he can help Ben. While she is walking away, Will yells out that she might get lost. The lady fires back that she never does. Alone in the marshes, Priya is collecting her samples from the water. In a short time, she gets startled by a sound twice. On the third time hearing the sound, she yells out that she knows someone is out there. Eventually, she yells it's not funny and leaves the water to enter another section. Her bad luck won't allow her to use her phone. It seems to have stopped working. The sounds continue to scare her, and we observe how unsettling the environment has become. Thus, Priya returns to her coworkers, where she is frustrated. She tells them she has enough data for her reports. All she is waiting for are Ben's sample. Then they can leave the marshes. When she asks Ben how long he will take, she doesn't receive an answer. Therefore, she asks again. Once he tells her it will take a few days, she claims she doesn't have that long. As Priya sleeps in her tent at night, we see a hand outside reaching out to her. She wakes up startled, and the hand goes away. But the trouble does not stop there because this same individual starts unzipping her tent. Although she prevents it, she is terrified to see the silhouette of the blade the person holds. As they keep scaring her with it, she rushes out of the tent. We see her running in the darkness in slow motion, highlighting the level of alarm. Soon she runs into a figure who is barely visible and backs off in fear. She picks up a piece of wood to defend herself in this moment of chaos. After she swings it a few times at the frightening person, Priya resumes her running. Come morning, she awakens in her tent a second time. Following such a strange happening, she touches the wall of her tent to be certain that no one is there. Priya wonders if it was all just a nightmare. Seeing a tear in her shirt though, she is forced to think otherwise. Exiting her tent, she tells the other two they should finish sampling and leave. Today Ben goes out with Will. Ben estimates that they should be back in an hour. Time passes as they walk through the tall grass, where they hear a pig squeal. Priya checks her watch, possibly counting down the minutes to 1 hour. At the other end, Will asks Ben if they are lost. The man replies with the most interesting euphemism, claiming that they are temporarily geographically misplaced. A fancy way to put it. Ben also claims he has been there many times. When Will forcefully puts his hand on Ben's shoulder to ask if they are really lost, Ben loses his cool and yells that they are. Following this, Will directs Ben's attention to a lifeless pig. It's likely the one they heard squealing. Looking at it, Ben says it must have put on a great fight. Thankfully, we don't see what they see, but we can infer from Ben's statement that they are looking at an unusual slaughter. As they near the poor animal, Ben finds Priya's camera. Switching to her, Priya gets surprised by a dog's presence. She checks its collar to see it is Cerberus, the dog of the foul man from the gas station. It has wandered away from its owner for an unknown reason. Anxious after seeing the dog, Priya quickly packs her belongings and starts walking to find her coworker. She bravely wades through the tall grass. Soon the duo hears someone's horrified scream and starts running. Priya must be close, for she is running too. It doesn't take long for her to locate her friends. After she yells where they have been, Will informs her that someone chased them. He shows Priya her camera, saying those lunatics probably dropped it during their hunt. Priya checks to see that the photo she took of the man is still there. Additionally, there is a video recorded by the hunters. The woman is recording the man until a figure approaches them and the camera falls. Someone's blood splatters on it. Once the video ends, the trio hears whistling. Suddenly, the hunter runs out to them without any clothes. The rope tied around him causes him to fall. He abruptly starts getting dragged back into the tall grass, making the group chase him. Upon entering the water, they observe how he hangs on a leafless tree. The trio stands there, looking at the horrific sight, and simply cannot believe it. Will likens this situation to a bad dream. They come closer to him to see it better. In a few seconds, the gang hears someone moving towards them, so they hide. The person they see happens to look like the one Priya encountered the previous night. He starts to cut the hunter, but as he does, he smells company nearby. However, he does not see anyone there when he looks back. Thus, he returns to cutting an out of the hunter to put it into a bag. He leaves the poor on a rock before walking away. The trio uses this time to run away. Eventually, they stop to catch a breath, and Priya says this is not possible. It was supposed to be a mere story. Ben thinks the man they saw was a maniac who heard the story about the Swagman and decided to take on that role. When they hear someone walking, the group runs again. The person they heard is the woman who was with the hunter. She is terrified. Being a caring individual, Priya gets out of her hiding spot to save her. Covered in blood, the woman keeps repeating, "It is coming." This prompts the researchers to keep her quiet. All four of them hide in fear, hearing the scary whistling of the Swagman. Soon they learn something they didn't have an opportunity to pay attention to. The woman has vanished. Scared out of her wits, Priya urges them to leave. Now elsewhere, the gang lies within the tall grass. Ben tells Priya he is sorry, and she replies that none of this is his fault. Despite what she says, he is still sorry for everything. The lady looks at him to say it's not important at the moment. Then he says he has to go to the loo. As he ventures out to find a spot, Priya warns him not to go too far. Shortly after, they learn Ben should have held it in, for he screams in the distance. Priya rushes to him, but sees that only his supplies are present, while he screams from another location. We see the Swagman brutally handling Ben. He takes out a hook to do it. Subsequently, Priya finds him hanging upside down from a tree and Will rushes to help her hold him. Ben wants his friends to hurry before the monstrous man returns. When they hear his unnerving whistle, Ben urges them to flee, so they hide in the tall grass, waiting for the Swagman to arrive. To their dismay, the Swagman is behind them, knocking the unsuspecting duo out. He follows this action by directing himself towards Ben to remove the organ that interests him. Doing this ends Ben's life. The maniac then proceeds to devour the organ. Waking up, Priya rushes to the place where Ben is supposed to be and finds he has been removed from the hook he was hanging on. Needless to say, this makes the poor lady cry, falling to the ground. She walks to another tree and quickly hides when she sees the Swagman behind it. After several seconds, she peeks out to see he isn't there anymore. Thus, she moves more freely to look for him. The injury she's just received affects Priya to the point of her falling to her knees. As she looks up, she sees the hazy face of the Swagman. He puts his hand on her head prior to knocking her out a second time. After he leaves, Priya regains consciousness and gets up to resume moving. We see Will is now awake and is crying in fear. Once he sees Priya behind him, he runs to hug her, relieved that she's alive. The researcher does not know what is going on. She thinks none of this is possible. Will wants to fight, yet she says they can't if they don't know what they're dealing with. According to her, the maniac is currently feeding. The moment he is done, he will come out to feed again. Priya believes the Swagman is taking them one by one until they are all gone. She plans to run to their escape, so the duo continues to advance through the marshes. They eventually stop at a certain point, and Priya says they need to reach an area they recognize. She takes out her compass, which does not help with its chaotic spinning. Regardless of that, the experienced traveler figures out where the north is by using the sun as her point of reference. Therefore, they must go in the opposite direction to find their camp or the road. They keep running through the tall grass. Eventually, Will says they're going in circles. The area they entered is the area they recently left. This is another phenomenon Priya simply cannot fathom. However, the duo keeps trying because they have no other choice. When they return to the place for the third time, Will remarks it was even quicker this time. He finds a circular object on the ground he thinks could be important in some way. Priya instructs him to stay while she investigates alone. In a short time, he witnesses the impossible. He sees Priya running back to him from the other side. This occurrence proves the duo is stranded in a paranormal trap. Frustrated, Will ruins the circle he found by stepping on it, and they continue to run. Having done this, relief fills them as they arrive at a new area. Priya advises they have to keep moving to prevent the Swagman from catching them. She guesses he uses his sense of smell to find people, so she takes off her shirt and gets Will to rub it on himself. The survivors crouch on the ground, hearing their hunter walk nearby. Once they start moving, they leave some of their items behind for the Swagman to find. After more stealthy movements, the duo sits down. Suddenly, Will gets bitten by a snake. That is just what they need at a hopeless time like this. Tending to his wound, Priya says the less he will move, the better. Not only are they evading a horrific person, but Priya now has to offer her support to someone who might not make it anymore. It does not take long for Will to fall to the ground. He has a hard time breathing and tells himself the Swagman isn't real. Suddenly, he starts getting dragged away. His friend rushes to find him, yet good luck hasn't been on her side recently. Thus, she falls to the ground in despair. The monstrous person really gave them a day. Fortunately, Priya is not the type to give up. As she keeps walking, the poor lady removes a leech from her shoulder and another one from her neck. She smears the blood that the leech managed to suck out on the tall grass. We see the swagman following her. He passes her while she's hiding from him. Alas, we see how difficult her situation is when an overhead view shows us that the place they are in goes in a circle. Despite that, Priya still gets out, making it onto the road. The sunset is there to greet the exhausted lady as she falls on the road in relief. She seems certain the swagman will not come out here to take her life. Soon she hears a car drive up, and people step out and approach her. To her surprise, they are her friends, who are supposed to be deceased. Perhaps it was all just a nightmare. However, she looks again to see they are gone now. Completely disoriented, Priya is still in the marshes. She had hallucinated her escape. As she realizes this, the swagman catches up to her. In the process of getting dragged away by him, Priya screams in horror. The marshes are his playground, and the poor woman is his next prey.